we asked you guys how you thought the Wild were going to finish this season. For sure not making the playoffs, a bubble team, or for sure making the playoffs. It seemed like most people were in the category of the Wild for sure making the playoffs. A handful of people thinking they'd be a bubble team. I didn't see anybody saying they weren't going to make the playoffs, which just could be Minnesota.
Just
optimism
Minnesota.
Speaking. Can't trust you guys.
No.
But yeah, Jesse, I'll let you answer it first since you normally give me the floor. Where do you think the Wild finished this season?
I think they're going to be a bubble team again. I mean, I do have slightly more confidence, but being back in the Central, we know what the Central does,
Yeah.
right? It's so up and down. And as we talked about with Wes and as we talk about in our breakdowns and everything, you know who your top team is, you know who your bottom team is, and it's so jumbled in the middle for me. I lean a little bit more toward them probably making the playoffs rather than missing, but I still see them as a bubble team because, again, you don't know what Chicago's going to do. You don't know what St. Louis is going to do or Winnipeg. I'm pretty high on Dallas if they stay healthy, and goaltending's a huge question mark there in Dallas. So, I mean, it's just kind of everything in there in the middle makes me think that it'll be a bubble team. It'll come down to those last few points, but that's where we thrive, right?
I was gonna say that's what always happens.
Thrives. So I'm going to go bubble team. What did you think, Alexis?
Well, yeah, first of all, the return to the division really changes the scope of like how we break down this season, and playing some teams that we didn't see as much last year and whatnot. And we know that historically, since they rearranged the divisions, which bring back the Northwest Division, my first petition of the season. I forgot about that bit. Bring back the Northwest Division.
It's back. Yeah.
But when they rearranged the divisions, which has been years now, the Central Division has been very competitive. I would argue it's one of the toughest divisions to play in the NHL. Every season, it feels like kind of a toss-up for anybody to really win the division and make the playoffs. So that makes it hard when you look at this because we know the Wild are not the best team in that division, and we know they're not the worst. So they fall somewhere in the middle. But what I will say is, and check out our preview because I'm going to drop this hot take in the preview. So hopefully you watch that. If you haven't, go check it out now. I say the Wild for sure make the playoffs. And I'll dive more into that in the preview that we did. So check that out. But yeah, I think the Wild are going to be a good team this season, and they're normally that bubble team. They're normally mediocre, and they get made fun of for being mediocre, and they get made fun of for being like, oh, here the Wild are average again. And I really think that they are going to take a step up this season. You've secured some long-term contracts on this team. You finally have some very exciting pieces on this Minnesota Wild team who you know can produce. And if some of those question marks that have people concerned get sorted out early in the season, and we know what we're dealing with, I think they're going to be able to put together a good season. So I am confident the Minnesota Wild are not a bubble team and that they very strongly make the playoffs this year.